Warning, this video contains naughty things, nasty things, and certainly not very pleasant things. If I were you, I would leave this well alone. What's happening? Welcome to Monkeyfamane Toys, your somewhat regular escape from adult responsibilities for the purpose of investigating non-essential luxury items presented from a barely adequate the sofa. Thanks for joining me again, and Happy Halloween! May your nerves be shredded and your pants shattered. Here's a shoe to look at. I'm going to put a dog in that shoe. Dog in a shoe, dog in a shoe. Dog in a shoe, dog in a shoe. This week I'm going to be looking at 3 different but equally unpleasant series of toys, all of which were produced by Mcfarlane in the mid-2000s, specifically the Twisted Fairytales series, the Twisted Land of Oz collection, and the horrors of Clive Barker's Infernal Parade. As you can see, the video is quite a bit longer than usual, and you should all think yourselves lucky, because if you enjoy the subject matter, this video is packed with putrid perversions, and if you don't appreciate such things, you can simply avoid this one and then continue to enjoy the channel without the prospect of me dropping any more of this stuff into your lap in the next 12 months. Once again, you may find some parts of this video alarming, distasteful, or offensive, but that will be on you, as A, I've provided several warnings, and B, I don't give a So let me remove dog in a shoe, dog in a shoe, dog in a shoe, and replace it with the best cushion you've ever seen. So, we can begin. Okay, we start with the Twisted Fairytales. This was, and is, Series 4 of the Mcfarlane Monsters line, and it features 6 well-known characters from nursery rhymes and fairy tales, each of course reimagined into creepy and disturbing versions of themselves. Here's a list of the 6 figures, should you wish to investigate or track them down yourself. But let's look at the characters. First we have Humpty Dumpty, perhaps the most revolting character in the series, a grotesque fleshy egg thing depicted as he might have looked following his fall from the wall upon which he'd been sitting. How he got up there in the first place is anybody's guess. We see that he's in a right mess. His body has ruptured in spectacular fashion, spilling out all sorts of gross stuff that I don't really want to describe, including a mass of huge worms and crawly things. I do not like this thing at all, and I have no interest in owning it, and I never want to see it again. Also, he looks like Bernard Manning. If you can stomach this thing, the rest of the video should be relatively plain sailing. Well, apart from the spider coming up. Next we have Peter Pumpkin Eater, sculpted in a frantic pose as though in a murderous charging pursuit. I don't feel that the figure looks particularly interesting, but he comes included with a huge pumpkin accessory which has been stuffed with a dismembered body. I believe the contents of the pumpkin are part of the mould, so these are not removable, which is a shame. I must say that I don't think this figure looks particularly good, so we'll move on. The series gives us Hansel and Gretel as separate figures. Hansel here is presented within a rusty metal cage hanging from a large candy cane with a pulley system, which is a fairly neat idea. The base of the set is littered with skulls, bones, lollipops and candy canes. It is possible to remove Hansel from the cage. We see he's perhaps undergone some kind of brain interference, as there are a number of staples holding his forehead together, and the way he's depicted would suggest that this procedure has rendered him somewhat mentally compromised. I won't be going out of my way, or my wallet, to add this one to my collection. So let's move on to Gretel. Now this is the most innocuous figure in the series. It's not particularly offensive. It does have a theme of forced subservience, but this of course was central to the story of the source material. As we've come to expect from Mcfarlane, a sexually provocative element has been introduced, with Gretel carrying out her chores wearing skimpy underwear, fishnets, spiky wrist braces and a spiked collar for some reason. She's shown mid-chore, the task being to mop up a puddle of blood, and we see that her legs and knees are smeared with the blood. She's sculpted in a peculiar pose with one foot resting on an upturned bucket, which doesn't seem like the best way to go about this activity, and she's holding a long mop which is also covered in blood. Perhaps rather than mopping up the blood, she's been instructed by the witch to spread it all over the place. I don't know, I wasn't there. This figure is one of only 2 in the series that I was really prepared to own. More about that later, but I will be looking at both of them at the end of this section. Next we have Miss Muffet, and this set actually makes me feel queasy, as I suffer with extreme arachnophobia, to the extent that I don't even want to say the word used to describe this thing. I did not enjoy gathering these images, and I wish this part of the video was not happening. Anyway, once again, a strong bondage theme is introduced into a Mcfarlane series, and this time we see Miss Muffet dressed in a pink leather bondage outfit, including a mask that covers her eyes, meaning she can't see this horrible thing, which appears to be having a right pop at the poor woman. It appears that this spider is highly articulated, so lots of options for display, but I really don't want to talk about that anymore, and I'm not looking forward to the edit of this section. I will just point out that Miss Muffet does come included with a bowl of curds and wahey! Finally in this series we have what's possibly the standout figure of the 6, Red Riding Hood. In this reimagining we see that Red means business, and has quite literally taken matters into her own hands, having caught and brutally eviscerated the big bad wolf. I do have a packaged and loose example of this figure, so we'll look at those more closely in a few moments. But that is the extent of the Twisted Fairytales series, the 4th in the Mcfarlane Monsters line. It's not a line I really want to complete, as I say, because the Humpty and Miss Muffet sets make me feel sick, and Peter Pumpkin Eater is a bit rubbish. I suppose I would consider an unopened Hansel set, but only because I have the Gretel figure. Unfortunately, they're usually very expensive, even loose, and the packaging is extremely prone to yellowing, so finding clear examples is not easy. Anyway, let's look at the 2 characters from this series that I have. I think I will just remove Skeleton Cat. And here is a look at the Gretel figure. That's how it looks in the packaging. This is a quick look at the back. There's not an awful lot to say about this figure. She does come, of course, with the bucket accessory. She has the mop there that's in a puddle of blood. I'm not sure how well that's coming across on the camera. And as is the case with a lot of these early Mcfarlane figures, they do have some limited articulation. As we can see here, she has a cut there just above her stocking. I'm not sure about her arms. Let's see if we can see something. Don't know. I would think her head possibly is articulated a little bit. Not entirely sure. But it just seems a bit of a waste of time with these figures, because if you arrange them in any kind of pose other than the one that they're intended to stand in, they just look daft. So yeah, I really think these could well have been produced as staction figures rather than articulated figures, because yeah, they do look rubbish if you move the limbs out of the default arrangement. But anyway, there we go. There's a look at Gretel. As I say, she's sort of in her skimpies. She's got a tattoo on her thigh there. Not sure what's going on there. She seems to also have one on her collarbone there. It's not the best face sculpt, but I guess for the time it's okay. So yeah, there we go. My camera's being a div today, so I apologise for the focus issues. Let's get rid of her, and we can bring in Red Riding Hood and the wolf. What remains of him. Same on the back. So this is how that looks. As I said earlier, I do have a loose example of this figure, so we'll take a closer look at that one now. And here is the Red Riding Hood figure. She's obviously in her underwear here, and does have a sort of mild element of bondage wear, covered in spikes. She has a nice cape here, or cloak. It's probably a cloak, isn't it? You can pull the hood back there to see that she's also wearing some sort of a bondage mask. She's got nicely detailed elements to her cloak there. She's carrying a knife with which she has eviscerated the wolf, and we'll look at him in a second. Now, this is not the default pose for her. I'll just put her arm down for the moment. The intended pose is something like this, because she's intended to be displayed grabbing the wolf by the scruff of the neck and holding him up, so all his intestines fall out. And let's have a look at that now, shall we? Woohoo! We shall. Here's the wolf. Let's just pop Red over there then. I'll just point out she's got a nice, it's a soft pliable cloak, but it does help her stand up very well. Ordinarily that would have been a problem because of the high heels that she's wearing, but it works quite well in this case. Here's the wolf. He's looking... Hold on. Sorry about that. There was a very loud plane going overhead, which is quite inconsiderate. If this camera would focus, we can see there that the wolf looks pretty happy about the situation, actually. As I say, he's supposed to be displayed sort of hanging by the scruff of his neck in that sort of fashion. You'll have seen it on the pictures earlier. So we can see inside his body here that's been cut open, spilling out, is the bits and pieces of Grandma. Here she is. I'm pretty sure she is dead, but there we go. So that's the wolf that comes with the Red Riding Hood figure. Red has claimed her grandmother back from the innards of the wolf. So yeah. Shall I remove them? I'll remove them. So there we are. That was a look at the Mcfarlane Twisted Fairytales series of figures from 2005. And next up, we have Mcfarlane's Twisted Land of Oz series. This was Series 2 of the Mcfarlane Monsters line, released in 2003. Now, there are 10 figure sets in the series, although there's only 9 characters, because the Dorothy figure has 2 versions, a standard release and a variant. Each character comes included with 1 or more chapters of a story which accompanies the series, much like Series 1 of Clive Barker's Tortured Souls, although the story for Twisted Land of Oz was written by... based on the classic story The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, written in 1900 by L. Frank Baum? I don't know. A 12-inch version of Dorothy was also produced. I do have that, so I'll be looking at it a little bit later. But first, here's a list of the sets. First up, we have the main character, Dorothy, along with Chapter 1 of the story. This set was released in a standard version, seen here wearing a skirt, and a variant without the skirt. As I mentioned, I do have the 12-inch version of Dorothy, which we will be looking at in more detail at the end of this section, so we'll just move on to the next character, the Lion. He comes with chapters 2 and 3 of the story, and I think this is probably my favourite character in the series. The guy looks awesome. Unfortunately, I haven't read the story for this series, so I don't know if Mr. Lion is a resurrected beast, but that would be my guess. As we can see, he's covered in grievous injuries all over his body. He's heavily scarred and wounded, with several swords and knives still embedded in various places, although he doesn't seem too bothered about it, and far from being a cowardly lion, this fella looks like a total weapon. He's clearly got a bone to pick with somebody. Unfortunately, I don't have this figure, but I would certainly get one, should the opportunity present itself. The third character we meet is the Scarecrow, who comes with chapters 4 and 5 included. Again, this guy's in pretty bad shape, and evidently not very good at his job. Rather than being scared, several crows appear to be pecking at his limbs and face, and he does seem rather irritated about it. He carries a wicked-looking rusty scythe, and his wooden frame is decorated with a dangling head, complete with a corn cob stuffed in its mouth. Oh, Scarecrow, we can't take you anywhere. Chapters 6 and 7 come included with the fourth character, the Tin Woodman. Looking more like one of the Michael Bay Transformers, this mechanical monstrosity is covered with pipes and pistons, although underneath all this we can see what appears to be an organic body. Quite how this figure was moulded, assembled and painted is beyond me. He comes with a puny axe, which somehow doesn't look nearly as big or frightening as it perhaps should, as well as a nicely sculpted and painted oil can to help him attend to his squeaky bits. His catchphrase is, "Oil be back," and I can only apologise for saying that. Next we have Toto, and he's guarding Chapter 8. I don't know what this guy's deal is, but obviously it's a huge departure from what in the original story was a small yappy dog. Yikes. I don't know what this is, or what on earth it thinks it's doing. And I have no idea why this little chap is riding it. Let's just throw a stick for it, and hope it keeps it occupied. Fetch! Good boy! Good boy! Who's a good boy? Rounding out the main cast of characters, along with Chapter 9, is the Wizard of Oz himself. Quite a dapper chap as these things go, although his head's pretty weird with 2 creepy these things coming out, and removing his mask and breathing equipment reveals him to be whatever this is. He comes with a hypodermic wielding assistant wearing a pair of little wellies. And to round out the figure series, we have the Collectors Club exclusive set, the Flying Monkeys and Munchkin, because no Land of Oz is complete without airborne simians. The series storyline actually concludes with the Wizard set with Chapter 9, So the Flying Monkeys set includes an alternate ending to the story. The monkeys each have their own individual designs and both look pretty cool, although the Munchkin looks like a deep wanker. So that's the complete series of these figures. Each character comes with a display base, and all of these connect to one another to form a filthy yellow brick road. Unfortunately, I've not been able to find an image of the complete set assembled together, which is a shame, as I'd like to see how that looks. Sadly, I don't have any of the 6-inch figures in the package, but as I say, I do have a loose 12-inch version of Dorothy, so let's take a look at that. So here is the damsel in distress. I'm sorry I can't get all of her in the frame at the same time. Now, I did pick this up for a very reasonable price, cheaper in fact than an unopened standard example would have cost, although she was missing her display base and, rather more apparently, her skirt. Now, I have made a base for her so that she can stand up, and if I'm able to find the right type of fabric, I would like to make a replacement skirt if I can. As I haven't read the story, I'm not quite sure how Dorothy came to be in this predicament. As we can see, she has been tied up and bound as such. She has some sort of a contraption around her upper arms that has a padlock in it. I don't know if that's showing up very well, but it does have a padlock on it there. So her arms are locked into this device, which is tied up with a piece of rope. I'll just quickly bring in the accessory, I suppose, for want of a better word. She comes with this guy. I don't know what it is, and I don't like it. I do think that the creature below here looks a bit like Freddy Krueger, as I'm sure you'll agree, and that chap is being ridden by whatever that is. This is intended to be holding the rope and kind of leading her along. This guy does have a branding iron in his hand, if you can sort of see that, and he has branded Dorothy on the side of her thigh/bum there. I think this guy is pretty horrible looking, and it doesn't really look that cool to me, and I don't understand it, so I don't display this thing. But yes, that comes with the figure. Let's remove that and take a little bit of a closer look at Dorothy. So we can see she's got a leather hood stitched around her head there, so she can't see what's going on. Also, unfortunately, I think these pins that go through her ponytail there have broken off, so that's a bit of a shame. I'm not sure if I can make something to perhaps repair those. Again, she's sorry, I sneezed. So yes, I mean I won't go into a graphic description of her appearance here, but we can all see what's going on. So that's Dorothy. She does have a key around her neck, as you can see here on a chain there, and this presumably is the key to the padlock that's holding her arms behind her back there. So yes, I imagine that must be quite frustrating, knowing that the key to her release is actually hanging around her neck. As I said earlier, these figures do have some limited articulation. Her head does move, but if you move it out of this position, as you can see, the sculpt of her neck just looks a bit terrible, and the sort of slight detail of her throat there doesn't look very good. So really, it needs to be in the default position, and I think they might as well just have made this a statue, because then we wouldn't have had the kind of unsightly join there around her throat. She's got some tattoos up there on her shoulder. She got any more? Nope, that's kind of it. Her leg does articulate, so she can stand with her feet slightly more together, or in that kind of weird, I guess, Japanese anime pose. But again, if you've put her on the stand, that's not sufficient to marry up the peg holes on her feet. But I think she should probably stand okay. But if we look at the thigh again, it's not great. I suppose it gets away with it because you could argue that was the top of the stocking that she's wearing. So I can forgive the leg articulation there, and I suppose it does give another display option should you wish. So yeah, there's Dorothy. Nice. Well, it's not nice, is it? But it's a thing. So that was the Mcfarlane Twisted Land of Oz toy series, first released in 2003. And now let's look at the final Mcfarlane series of this video, the Infernal Parade, more specifically Clive Barker's Infernal Parade. This spectacular depravity was first released in 2004 and is the second collaboration with horror fiction legend Clive Barker, following his significant involvement and input with the Tortured Souls series of figures. The Infernal Parade line is based on characters and the short story of the same name, presumably created for the purposes of the collaboration. Unfortunately, I don't yet own a copy of the book. It's very, very expensive, but the story is available online if you'd like to read it. It's in a PDF format. You can find it here, or you can search this. This short story tells of a macabre and unsettling version of a travelling circus, with each character featured in more or less standalone chapters, which reveal how each character became a part of this ghastly parade. Now, the book does not continue past that point. Each chapter is literally just an introduction of the characters and how they became enlisted or recruited into the Infernal Parade. Again, each of the figures comes with a booklet containing their part of the story, as was the case with the Tortured Souls Series 1 collection. In the case of the Infernal Parade, the vignettes can be read in any order, and the order I'm choosing here is not the same as that which is presented in the story. I appreciate that this is a bit confusing, but here's a list of the characters along with their chapter numbers, and we start with Tom Requiem, the leader of the parade and the king of showmen. After being apprehended and sentenced for the crime of murder, he is hanged to near death and then buried alive before being dug up by a mysterious figure and appointed the task of scouring the realms to recruit suitable horrors with which to assemble the Infernal Parade. Tom must then lead this horrifying assembly far and wide to strike fear into hearts and minds as an objection to the complacency of mankind. Obviously, I mean, duh. Tom's display base is a little wooden trolley wagon cart. Each member of the parade travels on one of these, although it's not clear how they're all being pulled along. Perhaps they are all hitched to a deranged mule. Next, Dr. Fetter's family of freaks, a number of unfortunate individuals who, after attempting to escape from their captivity, are found by a private detective hired by the insane doctor. The detective then falls foul of Dr. Fetter and winds up becoming part of the freak show himself. And then happens, and the group are recruited to join the parade. Next up, we meet Elijah, the golem. In this vignette, we learn of a young boy who hates his family so much that he runs away from home and meets a weird bloke with no arms who teaches him the art of golem creation. The boy creates a golem from ash, spit and blood and instructs it to take murderous revenge on his family. He names the golem Elijah. A bit later in the chapter, the golem gets all stroppy, killing its young creator before scarpering, and it's found by Tom Requiem, who decides that having the golem join the Infernal Parade would be a jolly good idea. Jumping back to the opening chapter of the book now, this tells us about the downfall of a city called Corantica, a place ruled by tyranny and fear. A judge in the city tries to overthrow the regime, promoting thoughtfulness and compassion, but the violent religious leaders unleash a big grumpy lizard called the Sabbaticus. The Sabbaticus goes berserk and rampages through the city, slaughtering all its children, ensuring that this video will also be buried once the algorithm scans the audio. Next, the subtly named Mary Slaughter. This character enjoys killing, brand new humans. And we learn that Mary becomes the victim of Tom Requiem's fatal stabby stab activity. She is, however, brought back to life and assigned to keep watch over Requiem while taking part in his parade. She's also given magical and mystical power over blades, because why not? And she commands a collection of dancing swords. So far, this is the only figure in the series that I have in the collection, and we'll take a look at that in a moment. But last up, we have Bethany Bled, introduced in the second chapter of the story. The figure of this character is my personal favourite in the line, although at the moment I haven't been able to find an unopened example for less than kidney-selling prices, and loose examples are also fetching some heavy coin. The character's story describes how this peasant girl is tricked by a posh rich bastard into regular boink sessions, with the carrot of marriage being dangled just beyond her grasp. Eventually realising that the promise will never materialise, she turns to witchcraft to resolve this unrequited love. The spell turns her lover into a numbskull, and she is captured by witch hunters who imprison and torture her before chucking her in an Iron Maiden to finish her off. It's not entirely clear if she does indeed fully expire before Tom Requiem rocks up and offers her a spot in his lineup. But expire she does, and is resurrected, because of course she is. Bethany joins the travelling show, performing nightly, a reenactment of her death and resurrection for the crowds that gather to witness the Infernal parade. And here is the Mary Slaughter figure. I'm not going to linger on this too much for obvious reasons, but that's what she looks like. I guess if you look at this very closely, it is slightly disturbing and perhaps unnecessary, but let's not forget that Mary Slaughter is in fact in magical control over these blades, and so she is in no danger at any point. The apparent jeopardy that she is in is purely for the entertainment of the crowds that come to see the parade. Let's just do that quickly, and then I'm going to remove it. We are almost done. And there we have it. Hopefully that was an adequate overview of 3 more unpleasant series of figures from Mcfarlane Toys: Twisted Fairytales, The Twisted Land of Oz, and the Infernal Parade. And we've had a look at a few of the figures I've been able to collect here and there. I don't think I'd be interested in collecting any more of the Twisted Fairytales, although I suppose the Hansel set would make sense alongside the Gretel figure, as I said. I think rather than Peter Pumpkin Eater, they could have perhaps given us a witch figure to go along with Hansel and Gretel. I think I'd be very interested in seeing what design they would have come up with for the witch. And actually, for that matter, I think rather than having the variant of Dorothy in the Twisted Land of Oz series, they could have perhaps produced the Wicked Witch of the West for that series. I think that would have been more appropriate and would have really finished that series off nicely. But I digress. Going back to the Twisted Fairytale series, I think the Peter Pumpkin Eater looks rubbish, and the Humpty Egg makes me feel sick due to his face. And as for the spider in the Miss Muffet set, well, that genuinely frightens me. As for the Land of Oz, I'd like to get the full set, but the price puts them way out of my reach, and the same can be said of the Infernal Parade series, although I would be very pleased to find a Bethany Bled figure if I can. So, okay, I need a segue. There's one now. Seamless! So the end of the video presents itself in a manner not dissimilar to that of a frog leaping incredibly slowly out of a bucket. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, there's something wrong with you, but that's okay. If I've held your interest, why not give the like button a poke in the eye, and leave me a comment and let me know which of the 3 series was your favourite, or which characters you thought were the best or most disturbing. I have no idea what you think, because I am not you. And now, I shall make like a shepherd and get the flock out of here. See you next time, and Happy Halloween!